Indy Mogul.
Harry Potter has already claimed his spot amongst the greatest film franchises of all time, but it's the decade-long build and the fact the story is truly ending that puts this final film, to be released in 2 parts, in a position to leave a real mark. Here's a look at the history of the franchise, the much-anticipated final chapter, and what's in store for your favorite wizards going forward. Despite his low profile, producer David Heyman is one of the main creative forces behind the entire Harry Potter film franchise. Based on a very favorable recommendation from his secretary, it was Heyman who first thought to make a movie out of the newly published children's book, and he persuaded J.K. Rowling to sell him the initial rights to the series for $2 million. Note that Rowling was careful not to sell the character rights because that would mean Harry Potter movies could be made without her involvement. In fact, Rowling made one very pivotal demand when she sold the rights to her books, that the principal cast could only be played by British actors, exceptions made only when the character's nationality in the story dictated it. This has resulted in a film series that goes beyond representing simply Harry Potter, but the fine art of British thespianism to boot. Perhaps if Rowling had made the same insistence for those who were to be behind the camera, the franchise wouldn't have had such a rocky start. Steven Spielberg was the original choice to direct Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but he wanted to make it an animated film with Haley Joel Osment providing the voice of Harry. When negotiations started to crumble, Spielberg sniffed that a Harry Potter film was a guaranteed slam dunk at the box office and didn't present a challenge. Spielberg then went on to make AI artificial intelligence with Osment, which proved to be too much of a challenge. While Rowling then voted for Terry Gilliam to take the helm, Warner Brothers reasonably wanted a more commercial director for their tentpole pick, so they went with Christopher Columbus, the man behind Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire. Thus, the main creative team became producer Heyman, creator Rowling, director Columbus, and American screenwriter Steve Kloves. But while directors would come and go, and Michael Goldenberg would handle scripting duties on Order of the Phoenix, one of the things that initial team got 100% right was the casting of the 3 principal characters. Not only have Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson faithfully brought their characters to life on the screen, but off-screen they've been complete professionals. And we got to see them grow up as the franchise literally matured itself, starting with when it switched directors for the 3rd film. Alfonso Cuarón brought a sophistication to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, but more importantly, for the first time he worked to make the films stand on their own. Of course, the Harry Potter movies will always be in the shadow of their richer, more copious source material, but Cuarón elevated them beyond mere adaptations. That ambition was continued by British directors Mike Newell for Goblet of Fire and David Yates, the director of the final 3 movies. And audiences have sparked to the films just as they did the books. So far, the first 6 Harry Potter films have grossed almost $5.5 billion worldwide, and individually are some of the highest grossing movies of all time. But will it join the $1 billion club? Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1 and 2, both have a real shot at amassing that kind of money, as audiences plan to flock to a rarity in Hollywood, the truly final chapter. While some have said that releasing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in 2 parts is merely a money-making strategy on behalf of Warner Brothers, the creative team insists that the decision was made in an effort to be more faithful to the final chapter. And as anyone who's read the books and seen the films knows, a lot of what Rowling wrote didn't make it into the first 6 films. But this is the last call. Everyone involved in the films has confirmed that this is the end of Harry Potter's story, just as Rowling intended it, which is an amazing show of restraint by Warner Brothers considering how lucrative the franchise has been for them. But then the Harry Potter films have always been handled with respect. Shot over a year and a half, The Deathly Hallows will answer all your questions and even give you a look into the future of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, whose older selves will indeed be played by Radcliffe, Grint, and Watson, with a little help from the special effects department. As for the rest of the cast, almost everyone is returning, along with new additions Bill Nye, Rhys Ifans, and Ciarán Hinds, the last actors to make it into the Harry Potter Yearbook of British Thespians. And you can see it all in 3D and IMAX 3D, the first time ever that a Harry Potter film will be available in either format. But as the last reel rolls, it might be the end for Harry, but it's also a new beginning for the people in front of and behind the camera. Is there life after Harry Potter? For Rowling, she's still deciding what that might be. She's flirted with the idea of writing a Harry Potter encyclopedia, and as for further creative writing, while she wants to continue writing for children, she'd like to try her hand at something besides fantasy. Meanwhile, producer David Heyman has his sights set on bringing another British literary icon to life on the big screen, Paddington Bear. And Warner Brothers, accepting the loss of a huge source of revenue, tries to build another with their DC Comics properties, the first of which arrives June 17, 2011. And you haven't seen the last of the franchise's 3 stars either. Daniel Radcliffe is already shooting the tragic biography of British photographer Dan Eldon, and he's also been cast in the ghostly thriller The Woman in Black, as well as the remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. Rupert Grint can already be seen in the comedy Wild Target with Bill Nye and Emily Blunt, and will star in the true story of British Olympic ski jumper Eddie the Eagle Edwards. Emma Watson doesn't have any films lined up, but she did make headlines recently when she cut her hair a la Mia Farrow. She's also the spokesmodel for Burberry. Pick up your game, Watson. As for Harry Potter himself, well, he retired to Florida. Will you visit him? And what have the Harry Potter movies meant to you? Write your thoughts down below, and as for you, Harry Potter, old friend, thanks for taking us Muggles along on the adventure.